All right, this is my second video in this series. If you missed the first one, please go back and watch it. My name is Mariana. I am an evidential medium, a animal communicator, and an energy reader, which a synonym for that is psychic. A read. This is for educational purposes only. I am not calling anyone fake. I'm not calling anyone real. What I'm doing is teaching about discernment and what to expect in an actual mediumship reading, letting you know that they're talking to the person that they say they're talking to. If you've seen my other disclaimers, which I should have copy and pasted, but I didn't, there is something called fair use. And that is when someone puts themselves out there on public social media, just like I'm doing, you can take snippets of their work, just like you can do to me. And then you can then criticize and or have a review or etc. of their work. That is not illegal, that is not maligning, that is not defamation, that is not libel. That is simply reviewing, based on your opinion, their work based on the Fair Use Act. Now, when they put themselves out there as a celebrity, you can even be a little more wild about it.
There it is. There it is. There it is. There it is. Superman 7. Superman 7. Superman 7 in all caps. Can you please type the word consent and validate that you are 18 or over? Spirit has illuminated Superman 7.
All right, so almost immediately for this video, if someone is in your live, this is on TikTok, if someone is in your comment section on live and they are actively putting in, so in this case, she's doing evidential mediumship and she is going direct. Now, the interesting thing about this is that she, because I've been following her for a while, used to actually really, what is that called? She used to be really disparaging against mediums that went direct. And so it's interesting that she is now going direct. What is the difference? So in mediumship, you have throw it out or spirit led, which means that you take in whatever energy or spirit comes into the reading and you give it to the person and say, do you recognize this? And then you have go direct, which says, I need the relationship or the first name or sometimes both, and I'm going to go get that person. In both instances, you still have to give the evidence that says this person is this person. Now, the beginning of this video, in my opinion, is very circus-like. It's very comical. It's very, of course I give consent. It's like if you went to a dentist and the dentist was like, am I allowed to put my hands in your mouth? I hope so. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm doing here. The other part of this is that I vehemently disagree with the people that are doing this 18 and over thing. I will absolutely... Is grief from death any different for someone under 18 than it is for someone over 18? Now, I can understand the whole parental consent, but anyone over 16, in my opinion, I will absolutely read. Anyone under 16, I'm going to maybe say, do you have your parents' permission? I've done readings where the parent is sitting there with their children, and I give a message to the children. I give shared memories to the children, the whole 9 yards. So grief is no different whether you're under 18 or over 18, and people have they get wrapped around the axle about this age thing. She then goes on to say that spirit has illuminated you. Now, I'm being a tiny bit sarcastic because I think that this is a very convenient way to pick someone out of the comments section. I don't think that she's faking it here, but I do think that a lot of mediums do fake it in their comments sections. One of the ways you can be fake is to put someone in your comments section and then pick them out, and they're either, I think they're, you'll see other videos where I say, I think that that's just her husband on another computer. Does that make sense? So that's, again, my opinion. So I don't think she's actually doing that here. I do think she's giving a reading, and one of the reasons I think that is because she gets no's. However, I think it's very circus-like to be like, spirit illuminated you. It's very, it's very religious tent in the middle of nowhere, 1850.
You're 30. I wanted to let you know that I have a dad energy here. Now, when I pick up a dad energy, this is either dad or a grandfather or an uncle.
All right, let's dive in. When I teach classes, I tell them to stop giving so many options. Number one, he already said he wanted to talk to dad. So when she says I have a dad energy here, well, I hope so. You're going direct. That's literally the point of going direct, is that you would have a dad energy. She then goes on, though, to cover her bases. So as a mentor to my students, I say pick one. You either have an uncle, or you have a grandpa, or you have a dad. I will say, keep in mind that even though I've attempted to get your dad, it could be someone else. So if I'm describing someone you recognize, understand it could be that person. This is what skeptics will call, this is the out clause. And I can't totally disagree, but I also know how mediumship works. So it's kind of a fine line. Again, though, if you say, I have a dad energy, and then you give 5 other choices, I think she gave 3 in this one. If you give 3 other choices, I tell my students, please don't do that.
Okay. So at this point, thank you. How do you connect to the number 7?
All right, so if this person was in my class and she was doing this reading, I would say, you tell him how he connects to the number 7. I'm not saying that she's wrong, because I believe he ends up finding a reason for the number 7, but so many people can, right? So if I say, what do you see for the number 3? Well, maybe you're a kid of 3, right? Maybe your parents have 3 XYZ. So it's very difficult for me to support someone who goes in there and gives a laundry list of tiny little things like, how do you connect with 7? You tell me. You tell me how I connect with 7. So in my class, and you can ask my students, you can go to my lives, you can listen to me on here, please don't use numbers. It's incredibly disingenuous, in my opinion. If you see the number 3, then go back to spirit, or go back to whatever you're talking to and say, why would you give this person the number 3? A lot of times people will be like, it can be a month, it can be an anniversary, it can be a birthday, it can be, they give them so many options that it dilutes the information completely. If you don't know why spirit is giving you the number 7, then don't give that information.
Excuse me. That's so funny. I know you've got 7 in your name, but this dad figure's given me another 7.
Is in July, the 7th month.
That's perfect. So when I give information, it's either the number or it could be the month. This could be connected to like anyone living, or on the other side, it can be connected to pets.
All right, so there you see, he did accept it as my person was born in the month of July. She could have gotten that from dad. She could have gone back and asked dad, why are you giving me the number 7? He could have showed her a birthday cake. It's a lack of development, which is ironic because she's been doing this forever in 7 days. But in my opinion, it's a lack of development, and it's actually a lack of trust in the information that you're getting. If you stop at the number 7 and you can't go further than that, in my opinion, maybe you aren't developed enough to be doing these sort of readings. She then goes on to cover her bases again. When I give this, it is either this, 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 or this. If you constantly just have a multiple choice reading, it's not a reading.
Who is the CA name? It's almost like Carrie, Carol, Kathy. There's a CA name.
I'm not sure. The only C name I know of is my stepmom, Christy.
Okay, it's possible. It is possible because I got the IE. Is her name Christy with the IE at the end?
It's her full name's Christine, so
Christine,
yes.
okay. Well, I'm going to keep going.
All right, in my opinion, the whole name thing was a bit of a crash and burn. That's my opinion. I encourage my students not to do names. Names are very much, especially when I'm watching people like Shar Margolis or Jonathan Edward, they're very much crapshoots. Does it start with an M? Does it start with an MA? Does it start with a J? Do you know someone? So it turns out that M and J names are literally the most common names, especially in the United States, right? Jeremy, Jason, Mary Lou. Those are called fishing expeditions. So as she goes in, she has this little fishing expedition, in my opinion, about a name, and she says, is it this? And he says, no. And then he says her whole name is Christine, and she tries to make it fit and then goes on. Now, we all have misses. But when we have misses, I tell my students, acknowledge the miss, take responsibility for the miss, and then move on.
It could, and that's your stepmom. Okay.
Yeah,
There's a number 4, or there's the month of April.
that's when he passed.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so there's a couple of things here. When she says, so that's your stepmom, again, that's kind of an information gathering type of thing. There's something in the mediumship world called don't feed the medium. So you should be saying yes, no, I don't know. Now, there is some leeway within there. As soon as you know that you're talking to the person that you say you're talking to, you can have a little more back and forth, but they haven't really got there, in my opinion. So far, we've done the number 7, a name that was a crash and burn, and I'd have to go back and watch it, but we haven't gotten to the point where I truly am comfortable with her that she's talking to the person that she says she's talking to. Then she comes up with the number 4. Now, this was a hit, but again, if you are a developed medium, you could have gone back to spirit to find out what that number 4 stood for. That's your job. That's what I tell my students. When my students come up, occasionally I will let them get away with a number. However, 3 kids, 3 this, 3 that. However, I normally say it's your job to go back to spirit and find out what that number 4 is. Spirit can easily give you the month of April and that would you understand. Also, she's asking questions. So when I teach my students, they should always say, would you understand? And I know this is semantics, it's a fine line, but that is a statement versus a question. Would you understand, or you would understand that I'm getting the number 4, which feels like the month of April, and I feel like that might be when he passed. Would you understand that? See what I'm saying? Do you see what the difference is in delivery? You are giving someone information as opposed to soliciting information. And it's a small nuance, but it's there.
Do you have his vehicle?
All right, so I absolutely would not care what the answer to that question is. That is a question. That is soliciting information. That is fishing for information. So it doesn't matter what the information, it doesn't matter if he says yes. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, this is a very, very tough one, and I fall into it myself, and you will see me sometimes reading, and I will say, oh, I asked a question, as opposed to giving information. So how would you give this information in a more digestible way? You would say, you would understand that you have his vehicle, yes? And then if he says yes, you have given him that information. You have not solicited that information. You gave him the information to agree with. Then when he says yes, oh, all right, that is a bigger hit. That is a bigger wow than asking a question and then adjusting your fire to act as if you were the one to give the information. Does that make sense?
He's talking about a
No.
car. Did you recently get a car? Are you looking at a new car? Is somebody in the family connected to cars at all?
The only thing is my grandma's car.
Oh, hang on, you're breaking up. You're breaking up. Let's try that again. What was that again?
I have my grandma's car.
You have your grandma's car? Okay.
All right, so again, you see that this is a no, right? So this is a miss, is what we call in mediumship. He didn't have his dad's car. And then she goes on to allow for, it could be your grandma's car, it could be your cousin's car. I don't know exactly what she said, but she gave, again, a multiple choice reading. Excuse me. Evidential mediumship readings are not supposed to be multiple choice.
So did
Yeah.
your grandma pass?
Yeah, she did.
Okay. So dad could be bringing grandma through because they're talking about a car. Somebody got somebody's car. That's what I heard. So, or somebody would be connected to like having a bunch of cars. So it looks like this could be who passed from the upper chest area.
That's my dad.
Okay. Okay. There's also something about the head. Now, if this isn't dad, this could be grandma that's passed. This could be anyone else that passed. Could be somebody on earth. The head would be Alzheimer's, dementia, brain tumor, stroke, aneurysm.
My stepmom's father has dementia.
All right, so this is going to be the last clip on this reading, because at this point I think you can see that this feels very underdeveloped. This feels very multiple choice. This feels very fishing. At this point they're having a conversation, and when you have to go back to your stepmother's dad in order to tie information to yourself, it's too much. She should be telling him information as opposed to asking him information. So this is part of the discernment. This is part of, in my opinion, so on a scale from 0 to 10, would I pay for a reading from this person? It's a 0. I know she has a lot of fans. I know people are going to come after me and they're going to be, except for this, except for this. Everyone reads differently, and I absolutely give grace for that. I understand that everyone reads differently, but there has to be some sort of kind of a foundation to evidential mediumship where you aren't just having a conversation with someone and then pulling information from them. So in my opinion, if I were her mentor, I would say the hits are there. You knew the chess thing, it did apply to dad. You knew the car thing, but you didn't know who it applied to. You get the numbers, but you don't take it a step further. So in my opinion, she's underdeveloped. She's underdeveloped, she's fishing for information, and she has relied on this way of reading for so long that she's very unlikely to change. Now, the chances of her giving in a shit about what my opinion is of the way she reads is very slim, but I'm trying to educate the masses that when people are asking you questions, that is a fishing expedition. The interesting thing, again, I will repeat, is that she's getting hits, but she isn't placing them. The sitter is. The sitter is coming back to her with this multiple choice reading, and he's placing the information for her. Now the sitter, okay, so let me not talk myself into a corner. It is the sitter's responsibility to make the connection between the evidence given and their loved one. However, at some point when you give a multiple choice reading in this fashion, eventually the sitter has the responsibility of doing your job. And that's not, you have a reader and a sitter, and the reader has a job, the sitter has a job, and spirit has a job. And so if you're consistently just having a conversation with the sitter and expecting them to continue to make every single thing that you bring forward make sense, and you give them so many multiple choice options for it to make sense, at some point this is not a reading. All right, I hope this has been helpful. Please let me know the questions that you have. Please like, follow, share. This is about discernment. I'm not saying she's fake. I'm not saying she's real. I'm saying that as a reader, as an evidential medium, I personally would not pay this person any money for a reading because there are better readers out there. This provided zero closure. This guy wasn't healing. There was more to the reading. It was really a hit and a miss, in my opinion. When you are providing healing and when you are providing closure, you are providing the information, not soliciting the information. Now, there's always going to be one-offs. I do it too, where I'm like, did you? And I asked a question, right? And so you catch yourself and you go back to spirit and you rearrange that information in a way where you can present it as a statement versus a question. Again, this is educational for entertainment purposes only. This is if I were your mentor. This is not meant to be rude. It's just meant to educate the masses and the mediums that are coming up. Would you prefer to have a conversation and look like this reader, or would you prefer to present information and kind of have the wow factor because the person on the other side is like, yeah, that's right. So something to think about.